Well, hello world, and welcome to the Mental Health and Happiness Summit. This has been an absolutely amazing journey that we've undertaken. The two people in the United States, Kim Olver and Nancy Buck, have been instrumental in putting this whole thing together. And we are having some wonderful speakers who are going to be on every hour throughout the next 24 hours. So if you're not doing anything and you can stay awake for 24 hours, maybe you might be able to see the whole lot. But you will get other information that will help you to see what you need to do from here. So I'm about to have a conversation with Mara Smart. I'm in Brisbane, sunny Brisbane in Queensland, Australia, and I hope that my accent is able to be understood by everyone, because some of the language that we might use could be colloquial, so I hope that you're able to understand. You are able to ask questions. There is a website or an email address that you can use that you can ask questions, so please feel free to do that, and we're looking forward to this. Mara is a retired Deputy Principal. Welcome, Mara, to this really exciting event. Who would have thought?
Thank you, Bette.
Who would have thought all those years ago that you and I would be doing something like this? Mara has worked very successfully as a teacher and a deputy principal at a school where she worked with students who were making choices that disrupted their learning and the learning of others. And since the time of retiring from education, Mara's life has taken another turn with other challenges that have been presented to her. Mara, can you tell us about those challenges that have happened for you?
Okay, Bette, and thank you for the invitation. The biggest challenge was on August the 17th in 2006, when my husband Robert was being prepared for open heart surgery, and he had a massive anaphylaxis. He was allergic to one of the products used, and much to everyone's shock, he went into cardiac arrest for 15 minutes and coma and all sorts of things. And now, all these years down the track, he's doing incredibly well, but we are living with a anoxic brain injury as a result of the 15-minute cardiac arrest, and that is indescribably difficult.
Yes, and I know, and I share this with you, Mara, because we've been in contact constantly over the last few years and since that time, and I certainly are with you on that journey that you've been. How would you define mental health, and how would you define happiness?
Well, I would define happiness as being at peace within myself when I'm living according to my values and core beliefs, and that I'm re-evaluating and developing them daily. Mental health for me means being willing and able to accept and adapt to whatever comes, be it positive or difficult. Right. And a huge learning for me with mental health has been being able to express rather than suppress what I need and what I want. And I remember when I actually worked through this, and I sent it to you, a little graphic that I did, that I used to suppress and then distress and then depress. But now I express and then de-stress. And thirdly, and lastly, it's being able to respond to other people's negative emotions and to acknowledge their feelings without judging them or without myself becoming threatened and defensive. That's all been very challenging for me to get my head around.
Yes, yes. Okay. Tell me more about it. Tell me about the sorts of things that you have personally chosen to do to improve the situation, because it hasn't been easy.
No, it's been really good. The things that I've personally chosen to do, well, 6 things when I think about it. Firstly, stay connected. Secondly, learn as much as I can. This is about this particular situation, but I did that with school, as you know. With Robert, recognise the signs of him being unwell and develop detachment. Fifthly, take my sails out of his wind. I remember the day that you helped me work through that. And lastly, but not least, to know myself and to challenge and change my core beliefs. So I could talk more about those, or?
Please do, please do.
Yep. Okay, well, stay connected. In 2007, not long after this happened, one of my friends from school, who himself had a brain tumour, he said to me, Mara, you know there are heaps of people here who want to help you, let them in. But he knew what was ahead for us both. And I wasn't letting people in. I couldn't handle the way some of the things that other people were saying. It reminded me of when Robert's only son died. They had the best intentions in the world, but they didn't actually have a clue what to say. And some of the things they said made it worse for us. So that's why I chose to disconnect. But he was right. And this is pretty significant to me. Can you see it?
Yes, yes.
Yep. Okay. When I was in rehab, pain rehab, we had to do art therapy, and I can't draw to save myself, so I decided I'd do dot painting. And I have a strong belief about, I really like the hymn Raise Me Up or On Eagle's Wings, those sorts of things that like lift above a situation. So I did this painting, this part. Then the next day I was in the bus. We were going from the gym back to the hospital, and I saw these 2 birds in the sky, a parent bird and a young bird. And the young bird was learning to fly, and the parent bird kept coming in underneath it all the time. And that really struck me because, you know, that we've worked together so much on mentoring, and I thought, you know, I have a lot of people who will make sure that I will not fall out of the sky. Pity they weren't there when I fell off the ladder, but anyway, I won't fall out of the sky. I can do this if I stay aware of my mentors and stay connected. So I went back to the hospital and I put myself in up the top. But there's a downside in a way too to the staying connected, because, well, you know, Bette, I had a very wide circle of friends, and I also there were a lot of people who were used to asking me to help them with X, Y, Z, whatever. And I'd got to the stage where I didn't have the energy to cope with what I was doing, let alone the rest of the world. And I thought, I've got to sort that out. I've got to reprioritise it. And I remembered when we went to Ireland to visit my family, we visited these people whom I thought were our relatives, and in his workplace, and he took us to his home, a little cottage down a boreen, and he was taking us for lunch. And anyway, when we got there, we were put in the parlour with cups of tea and sandwiches and things, but we weren't actually in the dining room for lunch. His mother said, their names aren't in the pot. Well, I really liked that, so I thought, when I was trying to work out my priorities now, I drew a pot, and I thought very carefully about whose names were going to be in the pot. And that's helped me a lot, because when someone whose name isn't in the pot wants something, I just say to myself, their name's not in the pot, Mara, say no. And I had to develop the ability to discern the difference between life-giving people and life-sapping people, including those who make unreasonable demands. So that was the staying connected. Will I go on with the others?
Well, I just wondered if you could take us back, because you mentioned falling off a ladder and going into rehab. Is that something that you'd like to just give a little bit more background to at the moment?
Yes, I can do that.
Just what it was, not a huge amount of detail, but.
Well, when I fell off the ladder, I fractured my spine and I was in a Lady Gaga brace for 12 months, which was pretty out there. And then I went into rehab to get out of the brace, to build my own brace. And I really consider falling off the ladder a blessing, because what happened, I was in rehab 3 times, and what happened the second time was, yes, that Professor Hina Geffen, who is emeritus professor at UQ, University of Queensland, and highly regarded internationally, she's a neuropsychologist, she decided that she would take me on as a personal patient, and I have come so far with her, because she's worked here and she knows, because she's a neuropsychologist, she understands how incredibly difficult the situation is, but she also knows the strategies and skills that I need, and she's just led me forward.
So the rehab was for actual pain management? It was for...
Yes. Well, it was pain management, but psychology was a huge part of it, because there were people there, young soldiers who'd got blown up in Afghanistan, and a wide range of people the 3 times that I went in. But we all had other stuff as well as our physical injury. Everyone with chronic injury there had psychological issues too.
Okay, so carry on where you'd like to go back to now that we have that clear.
Right, well, the second thing is to learn as much as I can, to seek professional help. Now, that was difficult for me at the start, because I had withdrawn in, I allowed you in, and a couple of other people, and that was about it, only people I really, really trusted. And so it took courage and humility to open myself up to other people, because Robert had said to me, there's something wrong with my brain after about 12 months, and I didn't want to accept that. I was big time in denial, but because he was so determined about it, I watched him and I thought, yes, you can't do the things that you used to do. I had to wake up to reality, and so that started the journey of me going to all different places that I can talk about later, to find out as much as I possibly could about the effect it had on his brain. But then, having got that inside my head, the big thing was, what do I do now? How do I behave now? And so I had to learn to recognise the signs of him being unwell, and that would probably be typical for he hasn't got a mental illness, his brain was damaged, but I know the symptoms are similar. He needs space, noise reduced, stress and expectation reduced. I had to learn to back off and pick my moment, and above all, to be loyal to his wellness, not his unwellness. So saying things like, I don't think you're travelling too well, it must be really difficult to feel like this. And you know him, Bette, he always wants to be doing something, gardening, painting, whatever, and he couldn't do those sorts of things, or he'd get tired really, really easily. So, working my way around that, would you consider slowing down a little bit before you wear yourself out? Not that it worked, but it let him know that it's all right to stop and have a rest. And my big concern is being under the affluence of alcohol, like when he has a few beers, because before it didn't affect him as quickly, but once you've had brain damage, alcohol just, you change really quickly. So I had to learn how to say things like, I will speak to you when you're in a better mood. I don't like your company when you're like that. When you say XYZ, I'm hurt. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want you to speak like that. Basically, to learn that peace at any cost is not peace. So I had to have the courage to confront those sorts of things. And sometimes to just say, I'm sorry I got it wrong, because I do get it wrong. And go on.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So fourthly, this was in a way maybe the most difficult, and I'm still not there, is to develop detachment, to remove myself from the situation. I can be more objective now, but detachment and distance are extremely difficult to develop, particularly in a marriage situation. I mean, we've been married for 40 years. But recently, Professor Geffen said to me, you are not nagging, you're standing back, you're dispassionate in handling the problems he has, you're learning to divest your own feelings, and it's working, by and large, it's working. So, I mean, I was kicking and screaming all the way. She'd say to me, go home and say this, or go home and do this, and I'd think, oh, yeah, right, and walk on water. But she was right. She was right. It's for me to just put myself in his head or walk in his moccasins and say, well, what's this like for him? And it's difficult for me. It's also difficult for him. What's reasonable to expect? There's a whole ironies of brain injury. It's once you've got insight, it's a double-edged sword bit. So he'll say things like, oh, probably a couple of times a week, I have half a brain. And he'd have told me to say, I've got a CT scan of your whole brain, and sometimes I've even showed it to him, and I mean it in my heart that he's fine and he's getting better. He is making incredible progress. You've seen that yourself, Bette.
Yes,
So
I have.
One of the tricky things is to watch feelings of entrapment.
Right.
Now, I hadn't actually realised that that was a potential problem, and I was very close to doing something very unhelpful or saying something very unhelpful, because I was starting to relax a bit more about it. And a friend of mine who'd been a doctor in outback Queensland, those very small country towns where everyone knows everything, he had a patient who was a Vietnam vet, and he was very, very disturbed, and he'd be out in the front garden thinking he was in the jungle and pretending to shoot people as they walked past, and it was really distressing for his wife and children, but he had no idea. Anyway, my friend decided he would work with him, and the Vietnam vet gained more insight into what had happened to him, and more importantly, the effect it was having on his family. And tragically, he killed himself by hanging himself. Yes. And his wife never forgave my friend. But my friend told me, because he could see, because after he told me this story, I said, why are you telling me this, John? And I can't remember what he said, but he picked up that I was on the verge of going down the same path. So it's a tricky, very tricky journey, not to make things worse. Fifthly, taking my sails out of his wind. That was really good the day you helped me work through that. I'm excited about our distance travelled and what we've learned together. See, I've had more than normal share of life's watersheds, and sometimes I've cried rivers of tears. And I used to grow life-threatening tumours, ovarian cancer, schwannomas, all sorts of rubbish. And because I buried my hurt deep inside me, and it festered and expanded dangerously. But now I'm expressing and de-stressing, and that is huge. And now I am not going to grow any more tumours. Anyway, this 65-year-old body's probably find it a bit tricky to recover from another surgery.
No, that's a really big learning, isn't it? That not taking it on board, and that you've gone wonders in that direction. You really have.
Well, thank you, Bet. You knew what I was like way back. And sixthly, to know myself, and that's really difficult too. So I think, especially when with the pain from my back and tumours that I've had, I get in the grip in terms of Myers-Briggs, and pain affects my ability to manage my life, and I will slip into patronising rather than guiding. And I didn't even realise I was doing this. And I did this course through the Mental Illness Fellowship of Queensland, and the course was called Wellways, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But the facilitator, one day we were doing role plays, and she said something to me. She was pretending to be Robert, and she said something to me about I was patronising, and I thought, am I? So that was pretty big, because I was doing this. Can you see it? Little girl pushing a vehicle.
Yes, I have seen it. That's lovely, isn't it? So that's what you were doing.
Well, I was spinning. I was stuck on my back wheels. I'm pushing him. He's getting angry and rebelling, and we were stuck. We were stuck.
Right.
So I had to learn to take on board whatever message those who love me are sending me. See, other people don't have the skills to deliver a difficult message the way you do, and I can take it from you, but other people they just didn't know how to go about it. So, and some people don't even, they're wrong, you know, so you've got to watch that the people that you're listening to know what they're talking about and forget those who don't, because I want to be able to accept what my friends and my family are saying when they think I'm wrong, but I don't have to agree with them. No. I do need to examine what they're saying without getting hurt, but I don't have to worry about the fact that they don't agree with me or they don't like me. Everyone in the world doesn't have to like me. It really doesn't matter. I was a people pleaser, big time. I was super sensitive Sally, and my physio called me Negative Nelly for the first few years, and every now and again I have to get the Wicked Witch from the West out of the cupboard and get on my broom and go and say what needs to be said to different people, especially in the health professions when they get it wrong. But I can do that now, and then I can put the broom and the Wicked Witch back in the cupboard and move on.
Excellent. No, that's a great way of saying it, yes.
Something that I learnt through, I also did this brilliant course online through Macquarie University, the E-Centre Clinic for Emotional Health. I did 2 courses with them, and I used to send you some of my homework. The first one was on pain, and the second one was on anxiety, and Professor Blake Deere was the man behind it. And I got some brilliant frameworks from that course that helped me examine my inaccurate, unhelpful thoughts and behaviours and my related physical symptoms. So my core belief used to be, I need to fix it. It's my job to fix it. Didn't matter what it was, right? But with Robert, if I worry about him, it shows that I care, and if I don't fix it, I'm a failure. Well, you can't fix brain injury, Mara, you know, but that's the way I was thinking. And now I've turned the whole thing around, and I've learned to be more respectful to myself, that my core belief now is I'm obliged to take care of myself. It is God's will for me. And my self-care will enable me to care for Robert. So Mrs. Fix-It has left the building.
Aha. And that reminds me of the book, and I can't recall the author, but that disease to please. It's letting go of that, isn't it? That it's not something you are motivated or driven to do, is to continually put yourself second and others first.
Well, yes, because I mean, I was brought up that way. Then I entered the convent, as you know. So for 6 years, I get in bucket loads more of what my mother gave me. And, you know, you look after everyone else before you look after yourself. And it's not healthy. You know, it's really not healthy. So that for me, it took a month. It took a month in rehab for me to actually turn the triangle upside down. Well, I had myself down the bottom, and I eventually accepted that I had to be up the top, because, well, you know, my faith is really important to me, and I think we forget, love one another as you love yourself, but we leave out that as you love yourself bit, and that's, I've just, you know, that's really hit me like a thunderbolt.
Excellent. All right.
So they're the 6 things.
Excellent. Yes. So that's you've used those 6 things to personally improve your own mental health and happiness. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
Yes. And you've said that a lot of it's come from, I mean, you're a lifelong learner, and I know that for a fact. That and you've learned a lot from the people that you have met, whether it was online, whether it was through the rehab, all of that. We both understand and know about Glasser and his view on mental health and the importance of people getting along together. Has this led you to thinking in ways that are a little bit different?
Oh, very definitely, Bette. When you first introduced me to Glasser, it fitted beautifully into my way of thinking in terms of free will and personal responsibility. So I could embrace it. It just melded like that. I have used reality therapy so much with, you know, the questions, what do I want? What am I doing to get what I want? I analyse my behaviour constantly with that framework, and also I analyse Robert's, because it helps me work out what he wants when he's doing these things that other people consider bizarre, but I can, it helps me nail down what's behind it all, what need. Most of the time it's fun. He's got a huge need for fun, and I've got a huge need for belonging. So sometimes I'm too reassuring and too suffocating, I suppose, because of that. So I've had to learn about that. Knowing that I'm stuck on my back wheels in terms of the car when I'm physiologizing and feeling, and I know, Mara, you're bold, move to your front wheels, think and do, girl, think and do. The smooth and the bumpy road's been really huge for me, because I get on the bumpy road and I think I can find my way back to the smooth road. This is where I want to be. This is how to go about it. And to know that there's always a way back. Remember that model I played with when we wrote in Bill Rogers' book, and he let me use his cartoon figures. That was really, I used that too. I think you've you're here, you don't want to be here, how can you get where you want to be? So most definitely, yes.
Was it about the students that you were working with as well that you used those ideas?
Oh, constantly, Bette. I don't know whether I told you, after we, changed the school's behaviour management plan. I hate that word. I prefer discipline plan, but people don't understand the meaning of discipline. But anyway, they think it's an external instead of an internal way of looking at managing yourself. And, we did great and wonderful things there.
Yes.
And when I went back to the school's anniversary last year, 50 years, the staff had taken it further and developed it. I told you about what Bette did, I think, with the individual.
Yeah.
Well, in terms the smooth and the bumpy road is in every classroom, and different teachers have changed it, adapted it, but it's alive and well. And this new teacher, wow. She was a graduate, she was explaining it to me, and I thought, oh dear, this is going to be a bit embarrassing when you find out who I am. But anyway, I just wanted to hear what she thought, how she would explain it, and it was beautiful. And then she pulled out from every kid's got in their drawer their daily monitoring list, every single child. It's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So yes, I did say to the principal, I know you put in, because there was a new principal there after we left, I know this has been a huge amount of work, but it's one of the happiest days of my life, and it was. It really was. To see it all flourishing.
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. So what do you want to cover in from here? What things do you want to continue to talk about?
All right. Well, I think I left something out. I think we skipped a question.
Okay.
I know. One big thing, if you are, in terms of the learning something, this is a little bit of Winston Churchill and a little bit of someone else, and I apologise to whoever it is because I can't find the source. If you are going through hell, you may as well come back having learned something. It's good, isn't it?
I like that. That's excellent. Yes.
Yeah. So here it is. Okay. So as well as Glasser and free will, life's watersheds, I have learned an enormous amount from life's watersheds, and I don't think I would have coped with this anoxic brain injury as well if I hadn't developed resilience through my childhood and through entering the convent and some of the things that happened in there. I mean, there's royal commissions into sexual abuse now, so I'm comfortable saying that I was sexually abused by the hospital chaplain when I was a novice, and that was working my way through that has been very helpful to me. And then the ovarian cancer, all those sorts of things. It's about honouring my struggle in those watersheds of life. So I could talk more about that, but you take me where you want me to go.
Yeah, continue on with that.
All right, go on. Okay, well, we were talking about things that are beyond our control that may affect people's mental health and happiness. And what have I done to maintain positive mental health and happiness? Well, foremost, prayer and meditation. Secondly, to honour my struggle. I have a painful legacy. From my father died when I was 13, and I was home alone with my mother, and she had some very harmful coping mechanisms. Now, I had the disease to please, and that distorts my perceptions, so I would jump in and fix stuff for her, and I was a doormat. I since then have allowed others to use me and to upset me. So what I needed to do was release Mara the martyr and release Mara the victim, and not enable harm to myself anymore. That other people's expectations, I would, do anything to meet their expectations. Not now. I am strong and I am peaceful in God's strength, and I safely and successfully risk rejection, which I would never have done before. I joined Queensland Carers, and they gave me a counsellor, Jenny Wells, who's been a great help. I don't see her very often, but every now and again, and when I told her, or somehow or other she knew about Mother's harmful behaviours, and she got me to do what's called imaginal exposure. So I did a drawing of the main incidents in my childhood that were the most distressing. I didn't want to do it. I really, really, really didn't want to do it, but because I knew it would hurt. But it was very therapeutic. And then afterwards, I scrunched it up and gave it away because I needed for it to go. It's like with the sexual abuse after that, only last year, Hina Geffen said to me, write a narrative about it, and which I did, and I gave to her, and then I burnt it. And so those strategies are so much better than what I used to do, was, squash it down, squash it down, squash it down. So prayer and meditation, honour my struggle. When I'm angry, and as you know, Bet, we have both suffered some very, I can't think of a polite word, very disturbing mistakes from the medical profession, and I get angry. So I had to remind myself that when I harbour anger, the only person I am hurting is myself. And this I thank you for. I have to challenge my word to banish 2 words from my self-talk. If, and what's the other one? Should. Should. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Just to let people know, and to let you, Mara, know, my screen went black and you continued on, and that is wonderful because the video is continuing on. So that's why I couldn't quite hear when I came back in. But carry on, please carry on.
I wondered where you'd gone.
You're a trooper. You're an absolute trooper.
So the last point there about things that affect people's mental health and happiness and what I've done, the last one there was to never, ever give up. Master the lessons I've learned as I go through my journey. Expect to be severely tested if I am to be the victor. And a major lesson from the book The Alchemist. Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure.
Wow.
That was really, really big for me. Yeah.
That's very profound. Very profound. Amazing. Was there carry on.
Go on. Well, the whole business of challenging my beliefs is similar to reality therapy, but a little bit different. I could talk about that.
Carry on.
Carry on? Okay. Well, the model that I was given is a 3-step model: to stop and identify the belief, For example, I can't do this anymore, I'm stuck with the results of other people's mistakes and mismanagement, and I'm angry. That was a belief. So examine the evidence, challenge the belief, and avoid reasoning with my emotions, but rely on solid facts. So this is step 2, and I worked my way to be able to say, we have managed it extremely well so far, and our relationship has grown. We have both grown as people, and we have strong networks and amazing doctors. And my doctor is just incredible. Can I say a name?
Why not?
Why not? Dr. Jane Chapman. If you want a good wellness doctor in Australia, she's the one. Email me and I'll tell you about her. The big thing is to learn we are not alone. We are not alone. We've both got a great support network. And then the third step is to change the belief. Now, if the belief is unrealistic or unhelpful, what can I do to move forward from that thought? And so I need to move from my back wheels to my front wheels. The whole business of what do you want to think? What do you want to think? What do you want to do? And so I worked my way through that, and then learned that he's frustrated and irritated, so his tolerance will drop away. That's when I'm thinking I can't do this anymore. And to where am I? Sorry, got a bit lost then. That here it is. Sorry. To work out whether or not it's worthwhile to be assertive, to allow take-up time, to change the way I take criticism so personally, to look for patterns of behaviour, same sorts of things that I did in school. I would do up those sorts of charts and try and track what was happening when and why, what had happened before, all those sorts of things. It's incredibly difficult, but it's really important to know what's going on in here.
Yes, amazing. So, just finally, what would you like our audience to take away from this interview today? What's the essence of it for you, do you think?
Well, I have to say that I still grieve for the Robert that I had. So if he died, I could grieve completely, but that's not my reality. So the tips and strategies that I use and I would offer, once again, those: stay connected, learn as much as you can, develop detachment, know yourself, change and challenge your core beliefs, but above all, if you're in my situation or something similar, prioritise self-care. I schedule breathing and meditation and exercise daily as preventative practices to maintain inner calm. I used to go into my relapse activities after I'd had a relapse, and my head's hurting, my neck's hurting, everything's. But now, because Hina Geffen said to me, schedule it, set your clock, when it goes, go and do it. Doesn't matter what else is happening. And so I do that now, and I maintain my calm better, and I'm not as easily triggered as I used to be. You know that I became alcohol-free in 2009. I know a lot of people think I'm boring, but I do believe that we need to detox our mind and our body regularly of toxic chemicals and thoughts. Yes. And as I said, that to have relapse plans, proactive ones as well as the reactive ones. so that I'm more tuned in. Stay tuned in to what's happening in your body. And sleep, nutrition and exercise are valuable. So keep up the good work. It comes in layers. Learning never stops. And my favourite quote is from Mother Teresa in terms of my life nowadays. She said, "I know God won't give me anything I can't handle. I just wish he didn't trust me so much." That's good, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's lovely.
And the other one, her other quote, and this has been even more important to me. "I have found the paradox," she said. "If you love until it hurts, there can be no more hurt, only more love."
Goodness. That's inspirational, and it's inspirational as you have been through this journey, and I'm hoping that people will hear some of the pearls of wisdom that you've shared with us today, because very powerful examples of how you have maintained your balance in really challenging situations. So I thank you for that, Mara, for that that experience of that you were prepared to share with us so openly and honestly. Your story is fascinating, and we thank you so much for sharing with us this afternoon. We didn't say how people, if they wanted to get in touch with you, how they could get in touch with you. Would you like that to come through me, or would you like to share information that where people could get in touch with you?
Or through you, please, Bette.
Right, okay. So if people want to contact me through the Mental Health and Happiness Summit site, we can get you in touch with Mara if you've got any further questions. But thank you, Mara. I hope that the rest of your afternoon is what you want it to be, and that you feel that you have. Well, how do you feel? How do you feel?
I'm happy, thanks, Bette. Yes, I'm happy. I'm happy, yes.
And I certainly am. Sorry, it's... Okay, so we'll leave it there. We're coming back at the top of the hour at 4 o'clock. We're interviewing Gary from South Australia, Gary Garno, and we look forward to him sharing information about what he has, knowledge he has as a psychologist, as an educator, and someone who's made a transition from full-time work to retirement. So we look forward to that. Top of the hour. If you're in Brisbane, Queensland, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but you might need to check that time. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a short while.